Oh, that's good. I'm sure that actually the vast majority of people do actually want to see some common sense in politics because it is sadly lacking at the moment. So one of the things that we've previously touched on is the importance of families, which of course for us at the Family Education Trust is really important because we see how the breakdown of families is contributing to the decline in society and the big rise in mental health crisis in children and young people. So I wondered if you could share your views about that and your experience in that.
Sure. I've been working with young people for 2 decades now, over 2 decades. I fell into the career working for Manchester Council. So I wasn't a youth worker. My job was around reducing crime and antisocial behaviour, but specialising in young people, stopping them committing crime and antisocial behaviour. And I can say from first-hand experience working for the council for nearly a decade that I can only think of one young person I worked with who was a problem, who had a father at home. Only one. Out of the other thousands, fathers were always missing out of the home. And I knew that was a problem then. I knew that was a problem from my upbringing because I was raised by a single parent. Um, and I was probably 23 years old until I realized I missed having a father in the home. And by that point, my father died. So my mum and dad split up when I was 2. He died when I was 6 or 7. So I have no memories of my father at all. And we were talking about shaving in a beer garden in a pub in Longsight in South Manchester. And we were talking around the table, how do you shave? Someone had bought the new Gillette £15 wet shaver. And it got to me, and my story was, well, when I was 12, 13, I found an ancient electric razor in a cupboard in an old bedroom that belonged to my dead granddad, and I started shaving with that. And I've always shaved with electric razors ever since. And all my friends had stories about how their dads took them to the bathroom, showed them how to shave, and they shave exactly the same way their dads had taught them a decade or two before. And I realised then I've missed having a father, only for this one silly little thing, which then made me realise, well, if I didn't know I missed it on this occasion, where else have I missed having a father, a male role model in the house to help me with my life, help me down the path of being a man, of taking personal responsibility, of working, of drive, of ambition, of being a protector, being a provider. And I realised there's many things I missed out on. I don't know what those things are because you don't know what you've never had. But I realised then at 23 years old, and then working with this, then working with the kids on the streets, which I set a charity up to do to stop kids getting involved in crime and antisocial behaviour. It was the same sort of kids I was when I was 10, 12, 15, lost, trying to make it on your own, no advice, no guidance. And as a boy, as the older you get, the less you rely on your mum. You
Yeah.
don't want advice off your mum because you're supposed to be a man. So we then filled that void with TV. Kids these days fill it with rap music and local drug dealers. I was lucky there was no such thing, in the 70s when I was growing up. But we start filling that father-shaped void with negative male role models, and we
Yeah.
wonder why young boys are making the wrong decisions. And I equate it to, the book Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
Lord of the Flies is a group of boys having to figure out how to create a society, how to live with themselves on an island, desert island. And they're making mistakes all the time and having to learn from mistakes. And that's what fathers are there for. So their children don't have to keep making the same mistakes. Life's a game. Some people start 4, 5, 6 paces ahead of everybody else in the game because they had a good father at home and they won't make those mistakes. They already know what's important. But without a father, you're starting from zero and you've got to start trying to catch up those other kids who have had a better start in life. And that's not about money. That's about advice, guidance, love, and affection, and having male role models as well as female role models. I don't want to put men back in the home so we can kick women out of the home. Children need a mother and a father in the home, not one or the other. They need both of them, both vitally important.
Yeah, definitely. I was speaking to Dr. Erica Cosima earlier, and she was saying that actually the the chemicals involved within the body are completely different within men and women, and that mothers, when women become mothers, that they have a big surge in oxytocin, and with men they tend to have a surge of testosterone, because that is nature's way of actually giving men and women the different biological functions that they need. And the push at the moment towards raising gender neutral children and trying to say that children are exactly the same, in our experience looking at the evidence, it's actually really harmful, trying to, especially with boys, trying to, well, both of them actually, but with boys, almost like they're trying to say, well, you're like a defective girl, you've got to learn and behave in the same way as a girl, and saying to girls that there's no difference between you. It just seems to me to be just so lacking in common sense, but actually harmful in that girls and boys are different, and men and women are different, and children need both. As I said, they need both their parents, their mums and their dads, to actually raise them to have the best chance in life. And it just seems crazy that we're going away from what all the evidence shows is actually the best way to raise resilient children, and we seem to be going away from that. And it's people are not joining the dots and showing that it's having this harmful effect on children. So what do you think we can do about it? Have you got any thoughts of what you would like to do if you are to be elected?
Yeah, so one of my policy areas is around the family,
Mm.
because that's what we don't celebrate anymore. Politicians don't even talk about the family anymore. It's like it's old fashioned. Well, you might think it's old fashioned, but it got us to where we are today after 100,000 or several 100,000 years of us privatizing the family led to this modern world we're in now. So the family is extremely important. And there's lots of things we can do. And some of the things I'll be able to do as mayor, but not everything, because I'm not the prime minister. So some of the things I'll be doing is the mayor's office. Anybody who applies for any money for any project out of the mayor's office will have to show how that benefits the family. And if it doesn't benefit the family, you don't get the funding for any of the projects. And then we need to look at, how do we get fathers back into the home? We need to look at our family court system. I've not had any personal interactions with a family court system, but everybody who has tells me it's horrendous. And it starts off from the premise that men are evil, men are violent, and then we take it from there. And it's like, that's not a fair system whatsoever. So the Mayor of Greater Manchester also has some responsibility for the criminal justice system, so I can be looking at that. But some of the big drivers need national government. So let's look at single parent households. So when we say single parent households, what we really mean is single mothers. So from being kind and compassionate in the 60s by saying, isn't it a shame? We feel sorry for these women and these children being brought up with no father and short of money. So what we'll do as a compassionate society is we'll give them some state handouts and their lives will be slightly better. That came from a nice place. But what it did was it financially incentivized wrong decisions by mainly women. And then it also allowed weak men to walk away from their partners and their children because the state would look after them. So it financially incentivized men and women to make poor decisions. And those decisions were poor for the state and poor for the taxpayer. It might have been the right decision for that woman and that man. But what we never talk about is who it affects most of all. And it affects those children, where women now, and men to some extent, make conscious decisions that I'm going to have a child and I'm not going to bring it up. Or I'm going to have a child and I'm going to have no man in the house. And you could class this as a type of child abuse, but it's socially acceptable child abuse. And there's different types of child abuse which are socially acceptable. Many cultures over tens of thousands of years have damaged children, have sacrificed children on altars, cut their hearts out, thrown them in volcanoes, because it's the innocence and the value of a child that makes them a good sacrifice. And we see that today with the trans woke crazy movement we see now. We're sacrificing our children on the altar of the LGBTQ touch your knees, turn round and bend over ideology. And we need to get away from that. And we get away from it by making sure we get fathers back in the home. So as mayor, that's one of my big things. family. So we'll be organising family fun days across Greater Manchester. And when I talk about family fun days, I mean events that are not specifically for the Black community, the Muslim community, the LGBT community, the Roman Catholic community. We have all these events all the time. No one holds family events anymore where it brings the whole community together, regardless of religion, sexuality, colour. We've all got families in common. I want grandparents coming. We forget about how important grandparents are to supporting a man and a woman raising their children, because it's hard work raising children and you need extended family, you need grandparents. So I want to start doing that across Greater Manchester as a very small step in protecting the family and trying to get men back into the households to raise their children. And some of the things I've seen through my 2 decades of work for the council, with the police and in the charity sector, is enough to make you cry. I mean, personally, I've stopped now just over 15 girls from being raped and abused. And every single one of them didn't have a father at home. And when you ask yourself, why is that? For 2 reasons. First of all, those girls were crying out for attention, were crying out for male attention. And all you had to do is, if you're a perverted man, is pretend to be her boyfriend, her father figure. And then they learn to get love, you give sex. And that's what we're teaching our young girls, to validate you as a young woman, and for you to get worth in this society is all to do with your sexuality, your sexualness, and it's completely wrong. So we're prostituting girls for love and affection. It also, because there's no father at home, perverted men know there's no father at home. So those girls are easy meat, because a man, if he's going to abuse a girl who has a father at home, that man risks violence, because he doesn't know how that father is going to react to this. But if there's no father at home, that child's natural protector is now absent. There's no protector of that child. It should be the father, but there isn't any. So therefore, those girls become easy meat. And then you can look at the boys, and I've worked mainly with boys rather than girls. But the boys have the same issue. No father at home, trying to figure out how it is to be a man. They're looking up to local drug dealers, the local criminals, the local gangsters in their area. They then get groomed into those criminal gangs because they want some respect. They get bought at McDonald's and they're a member of a gang. Other kids are slightly afraid of them. And they're mixing up the wrong type of masculinity. I mean, if anything's toxic, that's toxic masculinity there, but that's not real masculinity, that's criminality. But they have to replace it with something. They're replacing it with the wrong thing. If they had fathers at home, they would then understand what it is to be a man. They would understand how you treat women, how you treat your wife, how you treat your children, what it takes to have a successful relationship, the give and take, the compromise, the dealing with issues. We're not teaching any of our children, boys or girls, this anymore. So at the first point of a difficulty in a relationship, and let me be honest, every relationship is always full of difficulties. But if we're teaching young people now, you just walk away and you blame the other person. Well, that gets us into this single parent epidemic we've got, which then produces more children who want more single parent household, who get involved in crime, who then get involved, most boys who weren't raised by their fathers, 75-80% of the prison population in the UK didn't have fathers at home. Most drug addicts didn't have fathers at home. Alcoholics, gamblers, they're looking for the void. I've done decades of work now with rough sleepers on the streets in Manchester. Nearly all of them, no fathers at home. So they've drifted through life, can't make long-lasting relationships, can't make employment work. And then you go bang, 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 you end up on the streets, a drug addict, mental health issues. It's all connected. If we can fix this one issue, which is getting fathers back in the home, we will fix probably 50% of our social issues in the UK. But we haven't got any politicians brave enough or with a backbone to say this or do anything about this. And the main reason is short-termism. Our politicians only care about the next election in 3 years' time. They're not going to fix this in 3 years' time. So therefore, there's no point in me spending my political capital on this. I want something to get me elected. So let me look at some low-hanging fruit. Let me do some virtue signalling. That might get me elected again. And that's what's wrong with our career politicians. They're career politicians. What we need are statespeople, a statesman, a stateswoman. We need leaders who go, I'm going to do these things because these are the right things to do. And it may take several decades for us to get the benefit of these things. And I don't care if I'm not in power in 2 decades' time, because it's the right thing to do for the country. The last person we had like that was someone I never would have voted for, and that was Jeremy Corbyn. Disagreed with him in everything, but at least he came across as principled. At least he said, this is the vision I have for the country. If you don't like it, don't vote for me. And we all went, well, we're not voting for you. But I have some more respect for the man for that. He didn't go, what's going to get me elected? What he had a plan, a vision for the future, like Margaret Thatcher did. We don't get that anymore. We get politicians now who look at the latest opinion poll and then base their policies around the latest opinion poll. I call politicians like that cowards. If you like that video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell and comment. And if you like what I'm saying about running for Mayor of Greater Manchester, then stick around. Tell your family, tell your friends. The only way I'm going to have a chance of winning is a grassroots movement. So be part of that movement and hit that bell. Thanks.